the tools for a healthy body, healthy mind this evening. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Nicolita just to give a little bit about her background first of all. Hi, Nicolita.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here. I'm delighted to be part of this series of webinars. So initially, my background, we started in body fitness, where I was a world champion, and then I was 7 times national champion in Ireland. After that, I grew a huge interest in nutrition, and then that got me to doing naturopathic medicine, which I did the last year. I'm also a qualified phlebotomist, and I'm in the last year of also studying depression, to become a depression counselor. Obviously, I've been a lot involved in fitness, personal training, nutrition, and gladly I'm part of Profi Fitness for about 5 years as well.
Fantastic. You've a wealth of experience there. Could you tell a little bit about your mentioned world champion? What was that involved in, Nicolita? Was that weights?
Body fitness is part of bodybuilding, but you didn't require to get to that huge muscle mass. You just needed to have like a toned body and more feminine. Also involve a little bit, of maybe dancing, gymnastics routines, depends what you prefer to do. So then I continue with being a judge later on from that.
Oh, fantastic. And obviously that's touching on the areas you're going to be covering this evening, because to get in such fantastic shape, it was important to have good diet, good training, good mindset. All of those elements, I'd imagine, were really, really important for you to get to that level.
Yeah, but definitely, after I've done that for many years, I realized there is so much need for helping people that are having problem with their mental state and depression. And I just felt like, that's nearly more important than the way you look really. Ideal is to do and have all of them. But I feel like, the world needs something like this. So I went more towards the mental health at the moment.
And could you give us a little bit more information about like statistics on mindset, on depression and those kind of areas?
Yes. So unfortunately, they don't look really good at all. So more than 300 million people suffer from depression worldwide. So it's basically the world leading cause of disability as well. And around 800,000 people die to suicide each year. And more than ever, unfortunately, since this pandemic, for example. And suicide is like the second leading cause of death in 15 to 29 years old. So I think more and more young individuals are committing suicide nowadays. And it's also a huge interrelationship between depression and other physical health, so they kind of go hand in hand as well. Many times, when mentally you're not right, you get to a state towards the end where you're physically ill. And unfortunately, many times, people don't even realize that this is possible. So I think, we need to look at the whole picture if we want to be healthy. It's really important, to make sure we eat well, to make sure we exercise, make sure we look after, meditation maybe, self-love even. Try to put everything into perspective, to make sure we will be healthy. It's really not possible, one without another nowadays. And it was a Harvard study, and it showed that even if we walk only like 15 minutes, maybe let's say run 50 minutes a day and walk up to an hour slowly a day, depends on, your fitness level, you could actually improve the depression, with 26%, which I think is a huge one. Then if you add to that healthy eating and other forms of maybe breathing or meditation, could definitely beat that up, And also exercise can really serve as a distraction, which allows you to find some quiet time, to break from the cycle of negative thoughts that, feed your depression. Maybe listen to some nice music. And I think it's really, really important to find out what's that thing that makes you feel happy, and try to find the balance, between work, family, and, to relax as well. Why not?
So what would you say are kind of the causes and the symptoms? How do you know that someone's suffering from depression or their mind isn't right?
To be honest with you, the primary cause of all diseases nowadays, not this one only, but mainly mental disease, is the toxicity, the nutrient deficiency. You know, people always say you are what you eat, but I don't really feel that. You are what you absorb and what you assimilate, because you can take all the, you know, maybe good food or even vitamins in the world. If your body doesn't function properly, you're not going to assimilate, and then it's kind of no use, you know. Like if we look at Antoine Béchamp theory, you know, he was saying that we don't catch the disease, we actually build the disease, because we have to treat the patient and not the disease, you know. So you have to really look at yourself, see where you're lacking. You know, most of the time nowadays, unfortunately, many individuals, they just go online and they just copy a certain training program, or they just do whatever somebody else does. But it doesn't work that way, because in the end of the day, we need to see what we are able to do, accept sometimes that you cannot do as much as the other person, you know, and accept that you are a unique individual, you know, and you have to not compare yourself with the others, you know. And I think the majority of diseases are due to environmental factors, you know, and only a very small percentage are due to genetics, you know, as people may think. You know, there is an Ayurvedic proverb, you know, Ayurveda being like the Indian traditional medicine, and it says that when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. And at the same time, when diet is correct, medication is of no need. Because even how Hippocrates, you know, was saying, first of all, we need to eat well. Then you are looking into herbal medicine, and only then probably you are looking into medications, you know. So you're asking me there, you know, how would you know the cause, you know? So it could be something like, you know, you feel like unable to cope with the problem you have, is a permanent state of deep sadness, lack of motivation, insomnias, pure appetite as well, you know, maybe even pressure of speech, severe fatigue as well, ideas of self-harm, you know, get to a worse state, and even, you know, like psychomotor changes. This means, you know, sometimes you either you're really, really agitated, or you're really, really slow, as in, you know, maybe towards retardation as well.
So what sort of, you've talked about kind of the causes and recognizing the symptoms. What are the solutions? How do you solve it?
Well, you know, as I said earlier, first of all, I think it's really important. People need to understand how these things are working. Like every time you do something good, that's why it's called, you need to do a balance. Every time you do something good, something is happening mechanically or chemically in the brain. Same every time when you're doing something bad, something is destroyed. So the part in the brain where it's kind of responsible for all of these emotions is called limbic system. And I don't know if how, you know, the listeners are familiar, but that part of the brain is in a midbrain. And those are amygdala, okay, just name one of those, and it's kind of responsible for emotions. Then we have thalamus, which is like the relay motor and sensory signals to cerebral cortex. Hippocampus, which is the major role in learning and memory. And then we have the hypothalamus, which is responsible with energy maintenance and memory. Because, you know, in the end of the day, the biggest problem with depression is when you feel really, really tired, and when, you know, your cognition and memory are not working well. Basically, what it does, it helps all the neurotransmitters, you know, the neurons in the brain communicate with the rest of the body, you know. So all of these hormones, for example, serotonin, probably, you know, most of people heard of it, you know, is responsible with sleep, mood, attention, and inhibits pain. But what most of people don't know, that this hormone is present 95% in the actually stomach, okay, the digestive system, meaning is a huge correlation before digestive system and what we eat and the brain. That's why the part of the digestive system is also called enteric, meaning it's part of the nervous system officially now, you know, from the medical point of view. You know, we have the central nervous system, which is the brain and spinal cord. Then we have the peripheral nervous system, which are all the other nerves around the body. And the third one would be the enteric one, which is actually in your digestive system. That's why many times people are saying you're going with your goods, or, you know, maybe when you're stressed, you have butterflies. Is, you know, it cannot be a better proof than this one that, you know, is strongly connected with the nervous system, you know. And then if we're thinking, you know, of dopamine, for example, has a huge, you know, impact in our body. And this one is responsible for movement, cognition, and emotions. And for example, the minute we start exercising, our body is going to release dopamine, for example, meaning all of that stress that you created that could, later on transform into depression or even suicide, by training directly is helping you without you having to do absolutely nothing. And obviously it's much better choice than opting straight away from medication, which is going to have so many side effects. Talking about this, obviously, whatever I'm going to advise today, I don't want anyone to obviously give up their medication. They still have to talk to their doctor. This is something that you do on top of everything else. I'm just mentioning these things so people realize of the benefits of training and nutrition in relation to mental health. Also, there is something really important there, and it's called Gaba. More precise, is gamma aminobutyric acid, and this one has a huge link, with certain illnesses like Parkinson, Alzheimer, multiple sclerosis, which are serious illnesses, and all of these are basically created just because we don't have these hormones working properly. And most of the time, what these hormones may lack is actually amino acids. Unfortunately, most of people think amino acids have to do with muscle building and muscle maintaining only. But in reality, amino acids, are the most important for our brain. Okay, so if talking about directly solutions as in everyday life, obviously you have to start with, sleeping. Sleeping hygiene really important. The minute you're lacking sleep, all of these good hormones in your brain going to be destroyed. And it's really, really important to go to bed at the same time. Ideal time of going to bed would be around 10 o'clock and waking up would be 6 o'clock. So this would be ideal. I know most of people don't do this anymore. Then exercise, which I'll mention, and I'll go more in detail later on. Nutrition, again, supplementation, really important. I know everyone is saying it's fine to eat, food only. Ideal would be this way. The problem is nowadays food is not as nutritious as it used to be before. Even if you try to eat organic, the problem is the soil is not as good as it used to be before. All the pesticides, the chemicals, they are in our crops. So it's really important, if you can, check your health all the time. Do not wait until you have symptoms. Most of the times, by the time you feel your symptoms, it's kind of too late and it's going to be really hard. Still possible, but then you have to sacrifice a lot to be able to restore your health. Another one would be electronic devices. Big problem nowadays. I know we need to use them, but at least try as much as possible in the nighttime not to charge your phone, not to have your Wi-Fi on. All of these things are directly damaging our neurons in the brain, has been proven, a lot, and most of people don't take this in consideration. At least, kids under 6 years old, they shouldn't be allowed to use. I know it's nearly impossible, but at least ask them to use maybe maximum half an hour a day. More than that would be directly, affected. And even if you just use the phone, really, under 6 years old. Then work and rest balance, very, very important. It's okay to work a lot, but once in a while you need to take a break. Even if you are the strongest person in the world, even if you really have a lot of drive and you are a workaholic, at some point is going to affect you. So you need to have a balance there and rest sometimes. And when I'm talking rest, I'm not talking, work again, maybe something different, or maybe you are on the phone. Rest, completely rest with no phone, no TV is possible, be in nature, dance, paint, music, this type of things, that are considered to be really, really, relaxing. Also, I think it's very, very important to work on the perception we have in life. Like, it's so much pressure nowadays, to have, maybe a certain job, certain wealth, certain look. So I think, it's really, really important to have that acceptance. I think many time and most of the time, the depression has to do with acceptance, with perception that you have over things. Like, the story with the empty glass or half glass, you see it's half empty or half full. So I think this is nearly the most important thing. I'm not talking, you know, obviously when something really bad happened, like someone is dying in your family, these type of things are absolutely understandable. But most of the times people nowadays are stressed for absolutely everything. So we need to learn to see the good in every bad situation as much as possible. And I think, you know, these things, you know, are only able to be implemented in our head really in the family when we are really young or in schools, you know. Other than that, I think it's nearly impossible to be able to succeed.
Okay, so yeah, you've talked a lot there about the different solutions and how you can help. In terms of the physical training, can you go into a bit more detail on that? Like
Yeah. So exercise affects the brain in many ways, but one of the most important being, you know, is the promoting of brain plasticity by stimulating growth of new connection between cell in many important areas in the brain. So basically what I mean, the minute you start doing all of these things that I already, you know, talk about is going to affect your brain completely. But exercise, you know, is one of the most important. And there's been a lot of studies, and actually the most effective is strength training, believe it or not. You know, I know I'm not saying the other ones are not good to be done, but this one is proven to have the most benefits mentally and physically if you were to pick one, you know. Because physical activity, you know, especially strenuous one, is immediately boosting the brain hormones, the ones that I mentioned earlier, you know, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and they affect mainly the focus and attention. And basically, they are working in the same way as the medication, you know. So even this is, you know, a proof that I think doctors nowadays should really first, you know, ask their patients to try to exercise, try to eat well, and only then, you know, go on the road of the medication, you know. So what training is doing, you know, stimulates basically the growth of new brain cells, like fresh new brain cells, which is really, really important. Also help prevent age-related decline. You're going to get a sharper memory and thinking, boost your mood, which I think is really, really important, improve your sleep, because I think insomnia is really linked with depression nowadays, reduce or even eliminate stress and anxiety, improve your lifespan, which I think is really important. It has a positive impact on ADHD, which we know is a huge problem nowadays, especially with children, and improve your self-esteem and, you know, social withdrawal as well, because many times, you know, you really feel like you don't want to take part in any activities, you know, and usually after training, you have that inner happiness that you want to start, you know, talking to people, get into new groups, make friends, you know, and the increase of well-being, you know, is made through the release of endorphins, you know, which are the hormones located in the pituitary gland. And this area is released in response to pain, stress, and during activities. So basically, directly it helps you when you have certain, you know, negative emotions to be able to deal with them. And even if you're not suffering from a mental health problem, which we are talking about today, regular physical activity can still offer a, you know, welcome boost to your mood and outlook in, you know, general mental well-being as well.
Okay, and at the start of this call, one of the first things you mentioned was kind of meditation and breathing. Could you talk a bit more about how they would be beneficial to you in improving your mind and your body?
So first of all, you know, even doing, like, for example, if I give an example of way of breathing, is called Buteyko. Okay, so this one is really simple. You have to do it, you know, about 5 times, and all you have to do, first you inhale and exhale normally, then you just hold your nose for like 3 to 5 seconds, depends, you know, of your health, and then after that you release. And only by doing this 5 times, you can see straight away that you calm down, you know. um so there are all sorts of other, you know, breathing methods. This would be the most simple one. Also guided imagery is really important, you know, those techniques when you maybe you can go to a professionist and they kind of take you through imaginary, you know, way where you imagine you are in a nice place, let's say on the beach that I have here behind me. These things, you know, is going to calm you down. Yoga, we all know, you know, about yoga. Tai Chi as well. Mindfulness, which is basically a type of meditation in which you focus on being intensely aware of what you are sensing and feeling in the moment without interpretation of judgment, as I talked earlier about acceptance of thoughts and feelings. And a new one maybe is not that popular in Ireland that I really, really like is called Qi Gong. Qi is coming from the traditional Chinese medicine, and Qi is basically the vital force, that is going through our body. And, this one basically is a practicing of boosting health by increasing body awareness to help release blockage in the body. So this technique aids the flow of energy through vital pathways. And basically what it does mainly, it aids clarity and peace of mind and focus. And probably we know that in Asian countries, people are, living the longest because they are, every time they're working, they take, a few minutes in their break and they meditate, and even something simple, like going somewhere maybe beside the river and close your eyes and breathe and relax and try to think of the good things in your life or be grateful, or even something simple like, writing on a journal, all the things that you achieved, it could have a positive impact on your health.
Okay. So that's kind of how the breathing and the breathing and the meditation would help.
Yes,
I think
you have to be on a parasympathetic state. In this way, it means that your entire body is relaxed. So by doing all of these techniques, you get in that state. When you get in that state, it means that your body relaxes, is going to repair all the bad cells, and this one's basically is done by doing things that you love, things that make you happy, things that make you be there in the moment, so these things for everyone are different. For some people are playing sports, other ones, maybe singing, maybe going, swimming in the ocean or whatever it could be, whatever you listen to the birds, looking at, maybe going in the forest, earthing, these type of things, everyone has different things that make them feel relaxed.
So it's about kind of taking that time out for yourself, pursuing your passion, whatever that is.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay. The next kind of solution that you mentioned earlier, you just touched on it, was the nutrition. Could you kind of go into a bit more depth on how the nutrition can be helpful?
Yeah. So basically, imagine that you have a really good car and you want to put in the best quality oil, the best fuel, same is happening with our body. You cannot expect us to function well unless we give everything. And probably only by looking at someone, you can pretty much figure out, about their health. If you look, okay, I'm not talking genetics or food, I'm not talking about certain illnesses, but if, we take all of, we let all of that aside by looking at someone, skin, weight, eyes, you can pretty much figure out, how their health is, even the way they breathe. When you do an assessment, when they come to you in the gym, maybe if you are into those jobs, you can figure out, their health pretty much. But nutrition, I say probably is the most important, and nutrients, the good thing is, they can prevent the DNA damage, which is basically everything. If you eat the right food, you can make sure you are preventing inflammation, you are preventing the cells to be destroyed, and, prevent cancer, which is so bad nowadays. Aging as well is also really important, to stay away from processed food, from alcohol, from low fiber diets, from high bad fat diet, make sure you have a lot of the good fats in your diet. Protein, is a big controversy here, even though I know nowadays a lot of people like to be vegan and vegetarian. If you think about your health and you like to treat certain illnesses, yeah, that's the way to go. But for a healthy person, you need to be really careful how you are opting for a vegan diet. It can be done to be 100% healthy if you do it right, but otherwise, it could be really, really damaging, because we spoke so much about the amino acids. The minute you don't get all the amino acids in your body, you're going to basically affect your mental health. And unfortunately, it's been a study done, and most of people that have mental illnesses nowadays is kind of linked with vegans. Again, I'm not saying don't do it, but you have to make sure you do it right, Then also, obviously, recreational drugs, which are so popular, unfortunately, nowadays, it has a direct impact on your brain. Medication, they have so many side effects, smoking, artificial sweeteners, all sorts of stimulants, have a direct impact not only on your heart, but also your brain as well. They're really, really damaging. High sugar definitely is destroying, your brain. And it's really important, all of the toxins, at least if you're not able, let's say you have a certain job where you have to be around all of these pollution, at least to do a good detox, and detox, I'm not talking necessarily about, doing maybe fasting, even if you take your time, maybe to eat only fruit and vegetables for a while, or maybe detox could be, I'm giving up coffee for a while, or try to give up slowly everything. You don't have to do everything in one go. It's okay to accept that you are not able, for example, to give up smoking, but at least maybe you say to yourself, I'm having a smoke every 4 hours instead of every hour, or try to find ways. But I think most important way, to do it is to really put it in your head. But in order for your brain to work properly, obviously you need to be in the right state. Otherwise it's impossible, because most of the time people are going towards, all of these recreational drugs, smoking and alcohol, because their brain is not right. That's why we need to always look at the root. We really need to look at the cause of what we're doing. So instead of saying, I'm stopping smoking right now, we need to think first, make sure my brain is healthy, and then I can be in the right mind, and I can be strong enough to be able to give up all of these habits.
How long, just a question in there, how long do you have to be consistent with your nutrition and diet to see changes and results?
This obviously is really hard to say, an answer. It really depends where you are at the moment. In general, in a month, you would definitely see some changes, but depends how you can change. Like if you're really, really committed to it, and if you do serious changes, you can see it even in 2 days. But having said that, I do not really advise to do, straightaway changes. For example, you could be really dizzy. Depends if, you could have some sugar imbalances in your body, is not really ideal to do straightaway changes. So I would say in general would be 3 months if you want to go on a safe side.
Okay, so if you'd recommend taking like smaller changes over a longer period rather than drastic changes over a couple of days or
yeah, definitely. As I said, what I would do, I would work on a 3 months plan, and every week I would give up something or reduce something. This is the way I would go about it. Or every week I make a change. For example, if you never, even with training, if you never train in the last 5 years, you're not going to go straight to an hour. Even if you run for 5 minutes a day, it will still make a change in your health.
So while we were just on nutrition there, we move on to supplementation and kind of supplements that help with your diet, help improve your progress.
So what I would say there would be definitely omega-3. I think it's very, very important. So part of it would be, like 3 parts of it. It would be alpha linoleic acid, which normally we call it ALA. Okay. And you find this in like plant oils such as flaxseed, for example. Then would be DHA, which is docosaharic acid. And this one, you find it in calamari, anchovy, salmon, and also EPA, which is eicosapentaenoic acid. And this one, you find it in chia seeds and walnuts, for example. In general, if you take, a good complex omega-3 will do the job. But also most of the time, the problem is that the ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 is not the right one, So this one has to be 1:4, This is the biggest problem. Also, what I would advise here to take the 5-HTP. This one is the hydroxytryptophan amino acid. And what it does, it increases the synthesis of serotonin. We spoke about that hormone a lot earlier, because low serotonin can cause depression, but also obesity and insomnia. As I said earlier, many illnesses, they are, unfortunately, if you get one, is going to cause another one. That's why I say, it's like it's a thing that you have to do everything right to make sure you see serious changes. Another one.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Nicoletta.
No problem.
question has just come in there from Mary. Would you recommend a good brand for omega-3 with no anti-nutrients?
Well, in general, if you go to the health store, everything that's sold in the health store would be a good quality ones. If you go in normal shops, I won't necessarily say something bad about them, the quality would be lower. But if you go to a health store and even chemist, all of them would be of good quality.
Perfect. Yeah.
Another thing that I would mention here would be probiotics, good quality ones, because we mentioned earlier that, most of the illnesses, they start in our digestive system. So that's another thing where we have to make sure everything is fine. And probiotics usually, they help balance the friendly bacteria and improve mental health, heart health, reduce allergies and eczema even, so probiotics, I would say, really important to take them daily. But what I like to suggest here, I wouldn't like anyone to go on any vitamins, minerals, or supplements for a long period of time and not to take everything in the same time, because it's really hard to notice then what's working for you. So I would suggest to take like one thing at a time. You can take it until, let's say you have the ones you bought, they're finished and this is it. Do not keep buying them again and again and again. You need to let the body to have the opportunity to work itself. Usually when you start taking any supplement, you are giving your body a boost to make it work and repair itself. Another ones that are really important for mental health here, I would recommend vitamin C. We know already we find it in fruit and vegetables, but it's really important, to have a lot, because vitamin C is destroyed with smoking, with pollution, also with stress. And vitamin C can pretty much destroy, any viruses, and we need that so much nowadays as well. Also, what's really important, vitamin D. Again, you can find it in eggs and red meat and fish, but we know that some people don't eat these ones, so then it's really, really important. Vitamin B, probably know already, vitamin B, is actually like anti-stress vitamin. And you can find again in eggs, chicken, red meat, tuna, spinach, kale. I would like to notice here that most of these things are so much found in meat, eggs, and all of these animal products, so even more for anyone that's listening here and they're vegetarian or vegans, which is absolutely fine. Make sure you take good supplements as well. Selenium as well is important. Again, you can find it in Brazil nuts, beans, legumes, but if you're not having any of these products, selenium would be really important here. And probably the most important would be magnesium. Okay, but we have to make sure we get the right one. So most of people nowadays, they're getting the citrate magnesium, but this one, is really suitable for usually problem with constipation. So the one that I would recommend would be the one that is called glycinate. Okay, this one is known to help with mental health, and anxiety, chronic stress. Okay, and if you don't like to supplement it, which I really, really advise you to do, because most of people, especially in Ireland, they are lacking magnesium, you could take, maybe walnuts, dark chocolate as well, avocado, seeds, fatty fish, and any nuts really. But even if you take like 2 whole walnuts a day, you would get a good amount of magnesium.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit about, we're going to be a little bit short on time, Nicolita, so we'll move on to lifestyle maybe. If we could talk a little bit about lifestyle and how you can change that. Okay. So first of all, there are certain therapies that you can pick, on top of the one we spoke already, so those would be even exposure to sun would be important, maybe talk therapy, reflexology, acupuncture, phototherapy is really used nowadays for depression, music therapy. And what's really important, to kind of do the things at the right time. So having said that, according to traditional, Chinese medicine, every hour you're supposed to do certain things to work effectively. That's the way our body is made, like a clock. Okay, so if we start, for example, from 6 in the morning, when I already said that that's the time you're supposed to wake up, that would be the large intestine time, so that's why that's the time to wake up. If you wake up at that time,
then make sure it's going to function properly. Have, glass of water. Ideal, would be to have it with squeezed lemon or apple cider vinegar. Then we move on to 8 o'clock, so this would be the time to have your breakfast. Okay, so it's kind of going from, every 2 hours what you're going to do. Then it's going to be spleen time around 10 o'clock, and this is the time when has to do with your chi, as we said, with the vital energy that's going through our body. So that's the time when you also have the most clear thinking. So if you like to do any tasks or to work, that's the time, After that, around 12 o'clock will be the heart time. Okay, where it's going to be the right blood circulation, and you're going to have the highest energy. So if you like to exercise, would be good. After that, is going to be the best time to eat your lunch, because at 2 o'clock is the small intestine time, which means we're going to absorb all the nutrients from the food we eat. Later on, 4 o'clock is going to be the bladder time, meaning, you're going to eliminate all the waste, and that's the time when you're going to restore your energy. It's going to be good to study. Again, your memory is going to be the greatest. After that, it's going to be kidney time, around 5, 6 p.m. That's the time when you're going to build bone marrow, and it's called like a super time. So maybe was the most important thing on the day, you can do it around that time. And after that, would be the time to have your dinner, because again, this is the time when you're going to absorb all the nutrients. After this time, you shouldn't really eat, or at least if you eat, you should have a really, really light meal. Later on, around 10 o'clock, there's the time when all the hormones and endocrine system is working. So if you put too much food, in your body at that time, it's going to take all the energy to digest the food instead of regulating all the hormones in our body. So then obviously after that, we're supposed to sleep, because it's coming the liver time when it's going to happen all the detoxing in our body. And then lung time around 4 p.m. when it's going to be all the detox happening, the deep sleep, and the memory is going to be restored.
Okay, so you've kind of browsed through the whole day there and what's the perfect routine. So
this would be the perfect one, if we can, or at least to aim towards it.
So I suppose if you can implement that as close to your work schedule as possible, because obviously you have to work around it then as well. But that would be the perfect day.
Yeah, and what would be really good, to help us to succeed would be maybe to keep a mood journal and put daily notes of your ups and downs, and connect them with certain triggers that, they're happening during the day. And make sure all the time you address the cause and not the symptoms, during the day. Try to get into a daily routine. I think it's so important. It's really hard at the beginning, but once you get there, you're going to see that the body mechanism is made in such a way that you're going to want that thing. For example, if usually at 5 o'clock, you're going to have tea and biscuits. After a while, if you're going to have oat cakes and herbal tea instead of the regular tea, it's going to be hard for about 10 days to 2 weeks. After that, we have certain taste buds in our tongue. They're going to change. So everything is going to feel different. So from that moment, every time at 5 o'clock, you're going to crave your herbal tea and oat cake, and not the biscuit and the tea that you were craving previously. Also, maybe plan your day in advance is very, very important. Accept that sometimes, failing is part of life. Accept that you can only do a certain amount of work, and try as much as possible to be in control of your state and not to be controlled by it, obviously. And find the motivational incentive to help you create that, healthier lifestyle as well.
Yeah, so like what you're talking about there, even when you're referring to changing the biscuits, is just building habits, I suppose. Building lifelong habits that you can use over a longer term.
Yeah, the only thing that I like to add, when you get to a state where you are really, really severe, you cannot do it anymore, because this is what severe depression is. So what I suggest here from my experience, definitely herbal medicine. Okay, this one is way, way stronger. The traditional one have no side effects, and literally they are just changing the way you're thinking, the way your approach to things, So the ones that I like to mention here, you know, they are actually divided in certain groups. So some of them are called anxiolytics. Obviously, it's telling you even name, so has to deal with your anxiety. Okay, and some of them would be Avena is called, probably we know the wild oat. Another one is called ashwagandha. You can find them in health stores. St. John wort is really popular in Ireland. School cup, valerian. But I'm talking about these ones, not just the capsules. I'm talking as much as possible going to professional herbalists, because you're going to get the actually tincture, which is way, way stronger than the capsule, which is not enough amount. And by the time it's getting in your stomach as a tablet, you know, it's really hard to be absorbed unless your health is in a perfect state. Also, some of them are called sedatives, which obviously they help you with emotional stability and insomnia. And the ones I like to mention here would be Passiflora. Probably you heard of it, it's really popular as well, and School Cup again. Some relaxants, which going to help you with being, you know, beating restlessness, palpitation, when you are out of breath and when you're really irritable. And in here, the one that I would like to mention would be Tilia and Leonorus. And again, you can find them in health stores. I would also like to talk about some nerve tonics or stimulants for individuals that are really lacking energy. And the ones that I like to mention here would be St. John wort again, verbena, bacopa, ginkgo biloba, which probably we all know about it. And the last one that I like to mention would be the ones that are called nootropics. And this one are improving your cognition, function, memory, and concentration. And this one probably will be the most important that we need nowadays. And the ones that are doing this job would be rosmarinus, which obviously is the rosemary. Again, is really good if you can have the herbs, but I'm talking about tincture here because you need something way stronger. Another one that's called bacopa, ginkgo biloba, hydrocotyle, and acorus. So
Mary has asked, what about rhodiola?
Yeah, rhodiola is good as well. There's so many. These are the ones that I mentioned. Rhodiola is really good. Rhodiola is also called adaptogen, meaning it's going to help your body to adapt to certain stress that you have in your life. So yeah, that would be good. But again, I repeat, tincture would be best, but you can get tinctures mainly only if you go to see a herbalist. But if you never used before, maybe you can try first getting certain drops from, you know, a health store, and they would do the job for the start as well.